Hi, my name is Charles Wheatley, and today we'll be talking about Thomas Jefferson and his role in the Louisiana Purchase. This was a really big part of Thomas Jefferson's presidency. Started around 1803 when talks were originally coming up, and then it went into 1804. There were a lot of people who were happy for this initially, um, but at the same time, there was arguments between the parties, a lot being just Thomas Jefferson's past places in history on what he's believed and what he hasn't believed that kind of limited him in some of his abilities that he initially took. So the Louisiana Purchase was a really big part of the American history. It added 830,000 square miles to the United States. You know, it's kind of the first time we really expanded in a massive way. It would create 15 new states, which, again, we have 50 states now, so out of 15, especially 48 within the United States, at least on the boundaries of what we have now, that is almost a third of new states all in one. It was under French control after an agreement with Spain in 1800, and we initially wanted it because it was very close territory to us. Now, we were friends with France at the time, obviously, and there wasn't too much fighting going on with the United States at the time, but it was necessary in making sure that we didn't have, I guess, an enemy so close. There are other people that could have taken control of it, and that was really why Thomas Jefferson was interested in it. So in 1803, he sent James Monroe to join Robert R. Livingston, in order to buy it from Napoleon. He was told at the time that he would only have $10 million. That was his max limit he could pay for New Orleans and Florida and obviously Louisiana Purchase. So when he did this, Thomas Jefferson is quoted as saying, "All eyes, all hopes are now fixed on you, for on the event of this mission depends the future destinies of this republic." If you think back, you always hear about manifest destiny and what we were always looking forward to, going from sea to shining sea. And this was really the first time that we've been able to, and obviously it's without war, it's without conflict. It's just the ability to purchase land. And again, 8.3 million square miles is a lot of land. So Thomas Jefferson knew that this was important for our growth and as well as keeping us safe in the future. However, when Monroe got to Europe, they when they got to Europe, sorry about that. They already had made a decision to sell the territory to the United States, and they found out that Napoleon wanted $22 million for the deal, but ultimately they were able to get it down to $15 million on Monroe and Livingston. It exceeded what Thomas Jefferson initially said, but it kind of took a while because of news and obviously communication taking a while to get there. It was officially announced on July 4th, 1803 of the purchase. So it was over, but Thomas Jefferson, I think, knew that it was for the betterment of the country, and although it was a lot of money, if you actually break it down, it's a pretty good deal, especially for the time as well. So the deal was popular right away. People loved it. Again, manifest destiny. This was what we heard of from the beginning, and this was growth. That was huge. Thomas Jefferson really wanted it. It's probably one of the biggest accomplishments in his career. So there were some issues, though. I mean, number one, they need to start talking with Great Britain and Spain just on territory and talk about where what is. And again, they're trying to protect their borders and protect their country. This is able to kind of help them keep a buffer between themselves and these other competing nations. There is also a debate about purchasing such a large amount of property within constitutionally. So, as we all know, Thomas Jefferson was very strict on his belief that the Constitution gives the only rights to the president. So, even though the Federalists, his opponents, didn't agree with that as much, they kind of went after him and said, hey, it doesn't say in the Constitution that you can do this. Kind of not making fun of him for his beliefs, but kind of going after him for what he thought of as president. So they made it known that, like, we know that you're very strict on this, yet you're not saying anything. And they they told him, hey, what do you want to do here? So Thomas Jefferson considered to create a constitutional amendment to do this, and he said this was really the only way he could make the deal with France, and obviously he was going to do whatever he could to do this because he knew it would be huge for the nation, and he wanted to make sure that this went through no matter what. So Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Dickinson, and he said that the general government has no powers but such as the Constitution gives it. It has not given it power of holding foreign territory and still less of incorporating it into the Union. An amendment of the Constitution seems necessary for this. So, again, this was one of those things that, since he is so strict about the Constitution, he knew that he would pretty much have to follow it no matter what. But there was some questions about it. Again, he didn't want to lose the deal. Again, another thing he said was that in the meantime, we must ratify and pay our money as we have treated for a thing beyond the Constitution, and rely on the nation to sanction an act done for its great good without its previous authority. Again, that was also to John Dickinson. But so he knew that this had to be done, like I said. And he doesn't want to lose this deal, so he's going to do pretty much whatever he can to get it done. So his cabinet, including James Madison, they disagreed about the need for a constitutional amendment. They didn't think it was necessary. They were like, we just need to do this. This is for the betterment of the country, and no matter what, it will all kind of pull through. This included Thomas Jefferson's Treasury Secretary, Albert Gallatin, that said any potential deal with France would be permissible and implied under the Constitutional's treaty-making provisions. So they tried to kind of go over, his cabinet tried to say that, we could just say that this is a treaty, make a treaty, and then ultimately this would work out. So he kind of rationalized his decision for the treaty when he sent it without an amendment by Congress. When he said to John Breckinridge, "It is the case of a guardian investing the money of his ward in purchasing an important adjacent territory, and saying to him, 'When of age, I did this for your good.'" So I thought this was kind of an interesting quote, because it's kind of like a parent talking to a child. It's like, when if your parent gives you a fund that says, I don't care what you say, I could be giving you this money now, but instead I'm putting it into an account and trying to let it grow for you. I want you to have a better future, even though right now you may not think so. You may, want your money to be worth more now, or something in a will that says, although you might have a better, you might enjoy life right now, the more important thing is the longevity of this. and again, he says that it is for your good. So I think a lot of the country kind of agreed with this, but it was something that had to be argued for and against, just because there were so big differences between their ideals and how strongly they appreciated what the Constitution said. So then, by that time, Jefferson had the deadline of October 31st to ratify the treaty or lose the purchase. Um, so they brought it to a debate, um, and they wanted to bring it out and make sure that the Senate agreed with creating the purchase and uh, trying to build it up. And excuse me, I'm just reading a little bit more. But okay, yeah. So the Senate kind of voted on it and on the treaty, and it took them 2 days to argue whether the treaty was fair or not. Um, on October 20th, 1803, the Senate voted for ratification, 24 votes to 7 votes, and the treaty was signed on October 31st, 1803. This was positive. It was kind of a shared ideal between the parties. Yet, after it happened, the Federalists weren't very, not that they weren't happy, but they said that the Louisiana Purchase was unconstitutional. But it was never questioned in court, and nothing really came of it through that. But if you kind of look at it, it was the most positive thing to happen. Um, at the time, I think there were a lot of arguments still, obviously, between Jefferson's party and the Federalists. There were a lot of issues. It's a lot like we see now, where both parties disagree, and I don't want to say that this is like kind of a backstabbing kind of situation, but at the same time, they're kind of making fun of Jefferson and his party by saying, well, you guys don't have this, you don't have that, and you believe in this, yet you're doing that. So I thought it was rather interesting that Thomas Jefferson really was so influential in the sense on and easily changed, I guess, in his situation. Like he was obviously he really believed in the Constitution. That was big for him. But with that being said, he knew that for the betterment of the country and for the growth that obviously we want as a nation, that it had to be done. That we had to do this. I also thought just obviously a very important time in American history. It's such a big land purchase, and it led to so many things. If you think about Lewis and Clark and um, just Western expansion, this was really the first big Western expansion. And I've been to the Arch in St. Louis, and this type of stuff is kind of it's rather important for growth. I mean, the Lewis and Clark expedition was in 1804, May of 1804. So pretty much as soon as we had the land, and as soon as the treaty was done, within 6 months, 6-7 months, we were already out there. We wanted to expand, and that's kind of what America is as a whole. We have this growth potential. We have this idea of growth and what we want to do with our future. We don't just want to sit back and let the world roll over us. We're the ones that kind of craft it. I think Thomas Jefferson is really big within that. I mean, obviously being one of the strongest political leaders at the time, being our third president, he really is vital in creating what we have today and expanding on our imagination and what we wanted to do towards the future. So with that, thank you very much, and thank you for listening to my talk on Thomas Jefferson and all that he did for the Louisiana Purchase. Thank you very much.